A millionaire woman discovers that her lost son is selling roses at a traffic light in her city. On a remarkable afternoon, Sarah and Michael decided to take their few-month-old baby, Ethan, to the mall for a family outing. As they entered the mall, Sarah remembered that she needed to buy some new clothes for Ethan. She suggested that Michael stay with the stroller while she quickly went to the store. Michael agreed and found a quiet spot to wait for Sarah, near the mall's central fountain. He sat on a bench, keeping Ethan's stroller always within reach. Michael played with Ethan, making funny faces to keep him entertained. A few minutes later, Michael spotted a longtime friend across the fountain. Excited by the unexpected encounter, Michael waved to his friend, inviting him to come over. The friend came up to Michael, and they began to chat animatedly about old times and updates in their lives. Engrossed in the conversation, Michael didn't realize that he had stepped a few feet away from Ethan's stroller. He gestured while telling a funny story, laughing loudly with his friend. When Michael turned to check on Ethan, his smile instantly vanished. The stroller was no longer where he had left it. In a panic, Michael ran back to where he had left the stroller, looking around desperately. He called out for Ethan, even though he knew the baby couldn't respond. Michael's friend, realizing the gravity of the situation, began to help search, looking in all directions. At that moment, Sarah returned from the store with shopping bags. Seeing Michael and his friend running frantically around the fountain, she felt a tightness in her chest. Sarah ran to Michael, asking what had happened. When Michael explained that Ethan had disappeared, Sarah felt her world crumble around her. Together, Sarah and Michael began a desperate search for Ethan. They alerted the mall security team, providing a detailed description of the baby and the stroller. They scoured every floor of the mall, checking every store, every bathroom, every corner where Ethan might be. As minutes turned into hours, Sarah and Michael's anguish only grew. They blamed themselves for getting distracted, for not keeping their eyes on Ethan at all times. The police were called, and specialized search teams combed the mall and surrounding areas. That trip to the mall, which should have been a moment of peace and happiness for the new family, turned into the beginning of an unimaginable nightmare. The absence of Ethan, so small and defenseless, was like an open wound in Sarah and Michael's hearts. Minutes dragged on like endless hours as Sarah and Michael searched every corner of the mall, pleading for help from anyone who crossed their path. The security team was alerted, and soon a large-scale search was underway. Sarah, with her influence and financial resources, mobilized every possible means to find Ethan. She hired private investigation teams, offered generous rewards for information, and used her network of contacts to spread the news of her son's disappearance. Despite all efforts, days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, with no sign of Ethan. The pain of uncertainty gnawed at Sarah and Michael from the inside, consuming their every thought and moment. They could barely sleep or eat, always wondering where Ethan might be, if he was safe, if he was scared or crying for his parents. Sarah, once a confident and determined woman, was now on the verge of emotional collapse. Her wealth, which had once been a source of pride and satisfaction, now seemed insignificant in the face of her beloved son's absence. She would trade everything she had for just one moment with Ethan again. Michael, though devastated, tried to be strong for Sarah. He held her in moments of despair, wiped away her tears, and encouraged her not to lose hope. Together, they attended support groups for parents of missing children, sharing their pain and finding solace in mutual understanding. Years passed, but Ethan's absence remained an open wound in Sarah and Michael's hearts. They never gave up searching for their son, always keeping alive the hope that one day he would come home. Years went by, but the pain of loss never diminished. Sarah immersed herself in her work, trying to fill the void that Ethan had left. Michael, in turn, tried to be strong for his wife, but the truth was that he was also shattered inside. It was as if a part of them had been ripped away, and nothing seemed capable of healing that wound. Despite their immense fortune, nothing could fill the emptiness left by the absence of their beloved son. On a gray afternoon, While driving through the city streets in their luxurious car, lost in their own thoughts, Sarah and Michael were approached by Jason, a thin and ragged boy selling flowers. There was something in Jason's eyes that deeply touched Sarah's heart, an innocence and sadness that she recognized in herself. Moved by Jason's situation, Sarah and Michael began to talk to him. They discovered that the boy lived in precarious conditions with his mother, Emily, who was seriously ill. Jason was the family's sole breadwinner, selling flowers on street corners to earn money for his mother's medicine. Despite their wealth, Sarah and Michael felt an instant connection with Jason and Emily. They recognized in that small family a pain similar to their own, the pain of loss and the struggle for survival. Without hesitation, they decided to help Jason and Emily, offering not only financial support but also emotional support. In the days that followed, Sarah and Michael spent more time with Jason and Emily. They visited them in their humble home, bringing food, clothes, and medicine. Sarah sat beside Emily, holding her frail hand and listening to her life stories. Michael played with Jason, teaching him to read and write, giving him the attention and affection the boy longed for. Those moments with Jason and Emily brought a small relief to Sarah and Michael's constant pain. Seeing the smile on Jason's face when he received a new book or the gratitude in Emily's eyes when she received the medicine she so desperately needed was like a balm to their wounded souls. However, one afternoon, while Sarah was helping Jason put on a new shirt, she noticed something that made her heart stop. On the boy's arm, there was a familiar scar, a mark she knew very well, as it was identical to Ethan's. Sarah felt the air escape her lungs. She called Michael immediately, and together they examined Jason's scar more closely. There was no doubt, it was the same mark Ethan had since birth, a small crescent-shaped spot. A wave of conflicting emotions washed over Sarah and Michael. The possibility that Jason was Ethan, the son they had been desperately searching for years, was overwhelming. They wanted to grab the boy in their arms, cry with joy, and never let him go. However, they were also confused and apprehensive. How was this possible? What had happened to Ethan all those years? Despite their wealth and influence, Sarah and Michael knew they needed to act with caution. They didn't want to scare Jason or disrupt the fragile stability they had built with him and Emily. At the same time, they were determined to uncover the truth. With racing hearts and trembling hands, Sarah approached Jason and, with all the gentleness in the world, asked about his scar. The boy, with a disarming innocence, told her that he had that mark for as long as he could remember. He didn't know how he had gotten it, only that it was a part of him. That revelation was like a spark of hope in Sarah and Michael's hearts. They looked at each other, tears welling up in their eyes, as a whirlwind of questions and possibilities flooded their minds. Could it be possible that, after all those years of searching and despair, they had finally found their lost son? Despite their wealth and resources, Sarah and Michael knew they had a long road ahead of them. They needed to deal with legal issues, investigate Jason's past, and find out what had really happened on that fateful day at the mall. Emily's revelation about how she found and adopted Jason when he was just an abandoned baby brought an overwhelming wave of emotions for Sarah and Michael. Sitting in Emily's simple living room, they listened intently to every word, their hearts racing and eyes brimming with tears. Sarah and Michael had already discovered the crescent-shaped scar on Jason's arm, a mark identical to the one Ethan had since birth. That revelation had left them stunned, bringing up a mix of hope and fear. Now, hearing Emily's story, the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together in a way they never could have imagined. Emily, her voice choked with emotion, recounted how she had found Jason on a cold, rainy night, wrapped in a tattered blanket, left in a dark alley near her apartment. She was returning from work, exhausted after a long shift, when she heard the faint, muffled cry coming from a dark corner. Intrigued and concerned, Emily approached the spot and found the small bundle, shivering and crying softly. When she picked him up and pulled back the blanket, she was met with the most beautiful and innocent face she had ever seen. Those big, bright eyes, even amid tears, seemed to beg for love and protection. At that moment, Emily knew she couldn't leave that helpless baby. She took him home, fed him, and cared for him with all the love and affection she could offer. In the days that followed, she tried to find the baby's biological parents, but all her attempts were in vain. It was as if he had appeared out of nowhere, with no clues about his origin. With a heavy heart for the little one's situation, Emily made the decision to legally adopt him. She named him Jason, which means a healer in Hebrew, because she believed he had come into her life to heal the wounds of her own troubled past. From then on, Emily dedicated every moment of her existence to raising Jason with love, providing him with a safe and nurturing home, despite the financial difficulties they faced. As Emily told her story, Sarah and Michael felt every word resonate in their hearts. They vividly remembered the day Ethan had disappeared at the mall, the despair and anguish that consumed them for so many years. Hearing about Jason's abandonment brought up all the pain they had felt, imagining what could have happened to their own son. Tears streamed down Sarah and Michael's faces as they absorbed every detail of Emily's story. They wondered how anyone could have had the courage to abandon a helpless baby like that, leaving him at the mercy of fate. Their hearts filled with gratitude for Emily having found Jason and given him a loving home, even amid adversity. In that moment, the truth revealed itself like a ray of light amidst the darkness. Jason, the boy Emily had rescued and raised with so much love, was actually Ethan, Sarah and Michael's lost son. The crescent-shaped scar on Jason's arm was the irrefutable proof that fate had conspired to bring him back home. Sarah and Michael, their hearts overflowing with emotion, approached Jason, enveloping him in a tight embrace. Tears of joy and relief streamed down their faces, soaking the boy's shirt. They murmured words of love and gratitude, thanking every divine entity for this miracle that had happened in their lives. Jason, initially confused, soon understood the significance of that moment. He returned Sarah and Michael's embrace, feeling an instant and inexplicable connection with these people who had entered his life so unexpectedly. It was as if a part of him had always known he belonged to them, even without being aware of it. Emily, watching that emotional scene, felt a mixture of happiness and sadness. Happiness for seeing Jason find his true family and knowing that he would have the opportunity for a better life alongside Sarah and Michael. Sadness for realizing that she would have to let go of the boy who had become her world, the reason for her existence. However, Emily knew that true love was capable of overcoming any barrier. She understood that fate had conspired for Jason to find his way back home, to the loving arms of his biological parents. And she was grateful for having had the opportunity to be part of that journey, to have been the loving mother Jason needed during all those years. In that cozy living room, amid tears of joy and endless hugs, a new family was formed. Sarah, Michael, Jason, and Emily, united by bonds of love and gratitude, ready to face together the challenges that life had in store for them. They knew there was still much to be discovered, many questions to be answered, but at that moment, all that mattered was the happiness of being together again. Emily's revelation about how she found and adopted Jason when he was just an abandoned baby brought an overwhelming wave of emotions for Sarah and Michael. Sitting in Emily's simple living room, they listened intently to every word, their hearts racing and eyes brimming with tears. Sarah and Michael, with racing hearts and trembling hands, initiated an investigation with the police to unravel the mysteries surrounding their son Ethan's disappearance and the possible connection to Jason, the boy Emily had rescued and raised with so much love. One of the questions that tormented them the most was why someone would kidnap Ethan and then abandon him to the elements, as if he were a disposable object. What kind of person would have the courage to do something so cruel to a helpless baby? Sarah and Michael couldn't understand such evil, and their desire for justice only grew with each passing day. As the investigation progressed, Sarah and Michael decided to do a DNA test to confirm whether Jason was indeed their lost son. The wait for the results was torture, each second feeling like an eternity. They could barely sleep or concentrate on anything else, consumed by anxiety and the hope of finally having a definitive answer. When the long-awaited day arrived and the DNA test results were revealed, Sarah and Michael felt the world stop around them. With tears in their eyes and trembling hands, they read the report that confirmed what their hearts already knew. Jason was Ethan, their beloved son who had been torn from their arms years ago. The emotion that overwhelmed them at that moment was indescribable. A mixture of joy, relief, and gratitude filled their hearts. Finally, after so long, after so much pain and suffering, they had found their son. The hole that had been opened in their lives on the day of Ethan's disappearance was now beginning to be filled by Jason's presence. Sarah and Michael felt immense gratitude towards Emily, the woman who had rescued Jason and given him a loving home. They recognized the crucial role she had played in their son's life, offering him love, security, and stability when he needed it most. They knew that without Emily's intervention, Jason's fate could have been very different. Sarah and Michael, their hearts overflowing with emotion, approached Jason, enveloping him in a tight embrace. Tears of joy and relief streamed down their faces, soaking the boy's shirt. They murmured words of love and gratitude, thanking every divine entity for this miracle that had happened in their lives. Sarah and Michael, their hearts overflowing with gratitude and love, made an unexpected proposal to Emily. They wanted her to move into their mansion so they could raise Jason together as a united and loving family. The idea of having Emily nearby, of sharing Jason's upbringing with a woman who had rescued and loved him unconditionally, seemed like the right thing to do. Emily was initially surprised by the proposal. She had never imagined that her life would take such an unexpected turn. After all, she was a simple woman, used to struggling to survive and raise Jason with limited resources. The idea of living in a mansion, surrounded by luxury and comfort, seemed far from her reality. However, when she looked into Sarah and Michael's eyes, Emily could see the sincerity and love emanating from them. They weren't making this proposal out of obligation or pity, but out of a genuine desire to have Emily in their lives, to recognize and honor the fundamental role she had played in raising Jason. With tears in her eyes and her heart full of emotion, Emily accepted the proposal. She knew that this change wouldn't be just for her, but mainly for Jason. He would have the opportunity to grow up in a stable environment, surrounded by the love of his biological parents and the woman who had raised him with so much affection. The move to the mansion was an exciting process. Sarah and Michael made sure to prepare a special room for Emily, decorated with care and attention to detail. He loved Emily with all his heart, and the idea of having her around, along with his newly found parents, was like a dream come true. He couldn't wait to show Emily every corner of the mansion, to play with her in the gardens, and to share every special moment with his reunited family. As the days passed, Sarah, Michael, Emily, and Jason and personal growth. Sarah saw in Emily a strong, courageous woman full of love to give, and she wanted to give back in some way for all the good she had done for Jason. Gradually, the mansion that had once been marked by absence and sadness filled with laughter, play, and moments of pure happiness. Jason flourished every day, surrounded by the love of his 3 parental figures. He learned important values, such as gratitude, empathy, and the importance of family. Emily, in turn, felt grateful and blessed to be part of such a special family. She had gone through so many difficulties and trials throughout her life, but now, looking at Sarah, Michael, and Jason, she knew that all the suffering had been worth it. She had found her place in the world, her purpose, and was determined to give back all the love she received. Jason, meanwhile, grew up happy and healthy, surrounded by a family that loved him unconditionally. He had the opportunity to learn about his roots, explore his talents, and dream of a bright future. And all of this was only possible thanks to the generosity, love, and courage of Sarah, Michael, and Emily. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any, and tell me in the comments what you thought of Sarah and Michael's decision to also bring Emily to their mansion. Thank you for making it this far, and now enjoy the next video that's appearing on your screen.